You all see a man up here allegedly addressing the group down there, and vice versa, all responding to one another. Now look at the invisible, please. When you look at the invisible, you may see nothing. You will find an ability to look at the invisible one day, maybe sooner than you understand that it can happen. When you look at it, you will finally become aware that there is one soul that is teaching us. There is no physical person here teaching. There is no physical person there listening. There is one soul at this side of the desk and the other side of the desk. And that soul is drawing sustenance from the invisible. That soul is sharing that sustenance. Please know that you are a living soul. And all that you need, all that you require is in your soul, and it will always be there. There is no power on the earth to touch your soul. You will find that death can never touch you or any member of your family. The soul will see to that. The soul is undying. The soul consciousness goes before everyone. And we do not have to be in soul for the soul to be us. We have to be in the soul to come to an understanding of what is happening to us. But the soul will always provide your needs. So if they tell you that your daughter or your mother or your father or anyone you know died last week or the week before, there is no death in the kingdom of God. Please know that. And there is no place but the kingdom of God. Never buy the idea of death or disease or problems, because they take place in the illusion. That is the only place a death or a disease or a problem can take place. They cannot take place in the reality which is all present. Let's clarify the air of the belief that I'm going to die tomorrow, I'm going to die in the 3rd year from now, or I'm going to die in my 27th year. You will never die, because the death that takes place will be the mortal shell. Yes, that will, but it will not die. It will depart because you have not recognized who you are, and you are responsible for the appearance of death that does occur. If you had recognized your identity, the appearance of death would not occur. And so let's start recognizing our identity. And if you leave out another individual, you'll do what Jesus said you cannot do. When he went and visited those on earth who were in prison, and his people said to him, well, when did he visit them? I don't know. He didn't go there to visit them. He recognized invisibly that each was the same divine self. And I'm advising you to begin to apply this to everyone you know. You're worried about your granddaughter. Why are you worried about your granddaughter? Because you don't believe he's a divine self. Well, she's a divine self. You don't believe it. That's why you're worried. And of course you can't believe it if you don't know it. That's why you've got to go dig deep and find out that you have been the divine self long before you appeared on this earth. You'll always be long after you disappear from this earth. Divinity can't die, and the only thing alive is divine self. We either have been asleep or wrongly taught, and we have all assumed that we are this human body of flesh. And we don't realize that the body of flesh, which is there in appearance only, cannot be a self. It's an image. And we have images in thought, which are the same as having a disease. That's an image in thought. Having lack is an image in thought. All forms of lack or even abundance are images in thought. What you have is all that the Father has. And that's not an image in thought. That's a reality. And when you know what the Father has, the more you know about yourself. Now we're being taught by the soul. The soul cannot make mistakes. So if you go out and you are disobedient to what your soul is trying to teach you, or you can't understand it, you're using something other than that which is required of you. You're in the human mind. And the human mind cannot understand the soul. So the soul says to you, you're going to die in 30 days because there's no sense in teaching you what you can't learn. You'll have to be reborn. You'll have to be reborn until you're able to learn that you are the divine self. And if you want to speed up your realization so that you can speed up your living in divinity, then you have to get busy and brush away those cobwebs which all deny your identity. Think of how your identity is being denied this very day. Now you'll come up and see me and you'll say, I'm better. Or you'll say, that is recovery. Or you'll say something of that nature, all indicating that you have recovered from something, and you don't know that you have not recovered from anything. You've recovered from a human belief, which is not recovery. Recovery is nothing you can do in a divine sense. And so when you say, I'm recovered, you're saying, I am not the child of God. Now, I'm being tough with you, but I'm being tough with a purpose. I want to reach the point where we have the children of God assemble only, and talks will become a different thing. It's not to convey information, but rather to share the presence of God, which is what we could be doing now. But when a person says, I'm better than what? Better than the mortal I was who wasn't better. But you're not that mortal. So that's the real difficulty. The self you think you were or are, not the self you are accepting. And why aren't you accepting? Because you say, well, how can I say I'm divine if I have a pain or if I have a problem? Well, Jesus was suffering. He was lying there. He had gone through every humiliation and torture you can imagine. All the people were shouting, kill him, crucify him. All the people who came to him were suffering. What did he do? What did he do when this man came to him and said, save my daughter, she's 12 years old, she's dying, I don't know what's the matter with her. I don't even have an ailment that the doctors in this town don't know what she's suffering from. What did he do? First place, he accepted that she was him, and he was her. Where there are two in my name, that's the recognition of divinity. As soon as he knew she was divine, which was for him no problem, she was receptive then to the teaching, to the truth. He didn't touch her. He didn't whisper in her ear. He didn't even do anything that had anything to do with her, it would seem, except no, this girl is not a girl. This is the Spirit of God. This dying girl isn't a dying girl. This is Christ. Can you do that with your ailments? Just as if Jesus were doing it? Let's see, how do we go about it? I've got a terrible pain in my hip. Can I say that I am the Christ? Yes. That's the first step. Where is the pain? In your physical hip. Well, God is 100% spirit. So if you've got a physical hip, what's that got to do with God? But God never made any physical hips. How did you get one? I'm serious. God never even made a heart that fails. How did we get one? So you see, we have these imaginary ailments. And I mean it. I-M-A-G-I-N-A-R-Y. We think they're real. If that hurts me, and the doctor comes, and he thinks I'm going to be put on the list for the coroner, how can I possibly think of myself as Christ? Well, if you're thinking long enough, in 30 days when the heart would be ill, let's say, that Christ awareness is a little stronger, and in 30 years it gets very strong. It can be that strong in a day. So constantly, never accept the judgment of you that people give you. That's that housewife down the street who's married to so-and-so, or that's that man down the street who goes to work in the morning and does that. Let people feel whatever they want. But you know, the only one here is the Spirit of God called Christ. And I know that the one who misidentified me is that Spirit too. And as long as you identify the universe and everyone in it as a living Christ, you may not reach the point of Jesus, who could know everyone that way without even making any inside adjustment. You will find that people are going to seek you out because everybody doesn't know they are responding to this invisible impulse. When someone thinks you are the Christ, there will be an invisible impulse. And these impulses begin to spring up around you. More and more people begin to feel that you are the Christ. They even persuade you that you are. Now let's resume our awareness that I am the Christ, and let's not find that we break it up. I mean, don't stop when you go to sleep and become a human being and wake up in the morning and have to remind yourself that you're a human being or you are the Christ. Let's establish the 24-hour truth that I cannot say this to my neighbor, but I am the one called the Christ. Everywhere I go, you'll be wanting to say it occasionally, but people will think that you're a little touched. But you'll have the last laugh, because you'll find that the people you speak to and know that they are the Christ will feel better. They won't know that you think they're the Christ, but they'll feel better, and they won't know why. And you'll find that you feel better. And as you develop this capacity to know that Christ is everywhere, but invisible, never the visible person. The visible person is the image that the mind makes of everyone. The husband who looks at his wife doesn't know he's got an image of her in his mind. He thinks that's her standing out there. But that's not her standing out there. What's standing out there is the image in his mind. And what she sees of him is the image in her mind. Two images. And they're married. But that's not marriage. That's why the Christ never marries. You see that? There's no physical being to marry. The Christ is the one Spirit of God, the infinite one. So when you have to go to your next phase on the journey into the higher level, when you have been attracted to that phase, that will be because you have passed certain things behind you in the world. You don't think children are children anymore. You don't think men are men, and you don't think women are women. They become different beings. Each becomes what he is. And when you recognize what he is, not what he appears to be, you become eligible too. Now Jesus took, I suppose he healed 10,000 people, but they weren't people. That's why healing was so simple for him. He'd take anyone. If he couldn't see, what of it? His eye couldn't see. He looked at someone and he said, I see you and I see you, but his eye didn't see what was there. So his eye wasn't seeing a thing. His eye was always seeing an image. Now when you have the Christ vision, you're not seeing images. And that Christ vision isn't going to happen in one day. But it doesn't see images. It sees the Son of God everywhere. And it sees the Son of God who commands everything that the Father commands. And so, if that Son of God is looking as a human being and acting like a human being, he still has everything that God has. And that's why Christ brings it out of him. He doesn't give him the eyesight. He gives him the human vision of eyesight. But the vision, the Christ vision, is in this fellow who's lying there, even dead. When you're dead in the physical world, nothing in you has died. You have not died one moment. Because you will then reincarnate, start living this human life again, and the Christ can bring out of you those qualities of God which were in you at the beginning, which is no beginning. The dawn of life in the physical world is the beginning of the illusion, not the end of the illusion. If we can all develop this capacity to go back before our birth and try to understand that before my birth I was a being, I was a divine being, and then as I came into birth I came into the illusion of flesh. I'm really not a man or woman. I'm not a child. I'm divine being, and my name is Spirit. Oh, I look like a man or I look like a woman, and I act like one of them. But my name is Spirit. And only the attributes of Spirit are mine. And those are wonderful attributes. I am everywhere. There is no place where Spirit is not. I have every attribute of the Father, but I must first realize that I am not physical being. I am spiritual being, and that can be realized. And then what the Father has, I have, because I and the Father are one Spirit. I and Jesus Christ are one Spirit. Every being on the earth is that one Spirit. And that's why in the Ten Commandments we first learn that we have certain qualities of God, and then there are two added to that. And we can truthfully say that whatever the Father has is mine. We might add, what we have not thought of adding, whatever the Father has not is not mine. Everything that the Father hasn't got, I don't have. I can't have what the Father doesn't have. I can only have what the Father does have. What the Father doesn't have doesn't exist. And what the Father has doesn't exist in the physical world. You will be surprised when your body moves out of your experience and you find you're in a non-physical world. I don't suppose that even talking about it will prepare you for that, but some of us are apt to find it out sooner than we thought. When the physical body is not there, it will be because your mind has dropped the misbelief that I have a physical body, and you will find that you're in the Christ mind, which is not the human mind. The human mind thinks in terms of physicality. The Christ mind knows better. It accepts a spiritual body. You're going to have to learn about that spiritual body, because you'll be walking the kingdom of God in one. Now Jesus was on the earth to convert the human consciousness to the spiritual consciousness, to convert the human consciousness to the divine consciousness. That was the mission given to him in heaven by the Father. He had to have the human disguise, but you were reminded that he wasn't born a woman. You were given clues that this was a special being. You see how ignorant the world was at that day, that even though Isaiah had told them 700 years before that he discovered a new heaven and a new earth, they just heard words. Nobody knew what he was saying. And so when Jesus appeared, that was the fruition of that prophecy. And when Jesus did his demonstrations on the earth, that was the fruition of that prophecy, and his ability to take a person of the earth and convert his qualities not in the image and likeness of man, but in the image and likeness of the Father, so that a man would be recovered from something that was ungodly, and there'd be no sign of what made him recover. He didn't take any pills, he didn't go to a doctor, he didn't get operated on. All of the things that we do today, he hadn't done. He had taken him into the laboratory of his own consciousness. And all he had done was take away that which the man was not. He didn't add anything to him. In his consciousness, he only knew the truth of what the man was. And the man responded through his consciousness to showing what the consciousness of Jesus knew he was. Let's be still a moment and review in our minds some of the cases that he took, and see how we can find a comparison to people we know and to ourselves, perhaps. Now, if it's possible, and I believe it is, you should learn to look at truth in a different way than you have been accustomed to looking at it. You should learn instantly that what you have called a truth is not. Now, it may be possible for some of you to look at truth and know truth, and I'm not speaking of your ability to do that. I'm speaking of those who do not have that ability. If you do not have the capacity to know truth, then you'll have to start with one truth that you can count on. Never think that you are not the child of God. That is identity. That is basic identity. I am the child of God. Now, when you accept that, you started to heal yourself. You are provided for by God, 100%. Who provided you with those qualities that are not divine? Even your vision, even though it's 20/20, who provided you with that quality? You're wrong if you think God did. God provided you with nothing that you will ever lose. Someday you will not have that vision. You will not be able to hear or talk. God didn't give you those qualities. Those are the counterfeits. Those are the cosmic illusion. God gave you permanent vision, not to see with your eyes, to see with your soul. God gave you permanent hearing, not to hear with your ears. Just the sounds of the world are not divine, but to hear with your soul. Your soul has permanent qualities. And I'm not saying some souls have and some souls have not. There's only one soul. One soul. Your soul can see, hear, taste, touch in a different way than touching the surface of things. Your soul will never look at an individual and say, you have cancer. Because your soul only knows the one Christ. And because the Christ never has cancer, the soul is not concerned about cancer. And you say, well, what about me? You are the one Christ. And if you don't know it, you may have the cancer. You won't know it. You won't recognize the cancer. It will even tell you you can't have cancer when you know you are that one. And I mean it will tell you that. When it heals you of something where you had thought was going to lead to a rather total experience of death, and then you don't die, your soul will tell you why you didn't die. It will tell you you couldn't die. That was a person you were thinking of. You're not that person. Christ doesn't die. You can't crucify Christ. So they called Christ in. He went first. He was tried on the earth. He was tried by his so-called human peers. Annas, Caiaphas, then Pontius Pilate, finally Golgotha. And now they were going to put him to death, and they did. When he had the last speck of life in him, or the last speck of what they thought was life, he was as much the Christ as he ever was. You cannot crucify the Christ. You can crucify a man, and if the man thinks he's a man, which everyone does, he can be crucified. But this man was not a man. He had been selected to convert the universe of men into Christhood. With his last ounce of human breath, he was as much the Christ as he ever would be. He was the Christ of everyone who was crucifying him. Do you see the absurdity? Self doesn't crucify self. There's only one self. Why was he doing that? If he had shown so much in his lifetime, I can escape this, I can make him escape that, I can take this away from him, and I can take that pain away from her. Why in his last breath didn't he do something? You've never been told why. The world doesn't know. He was showing that death is an illusion. That's why. You will kill me and you will think I am dead. And you have just killed an illusion. You have killed a mortal being. And there aren't any. They are not out there. They're in the eyes of each mortal. Each mortal looks out at what he thinks is mortality, and it's in himself. Each mortal goes to a grave. But he doesn't go to a grave. He's buried in himself, in his own mentality. One who knows he's the Christ will also go to a grave in his physical appearance. But he's not in the grave. Christ is in the kingdom always. While Jesus was appearing in this kingdom, Christ of Jesus was in the kingdom. You've got to get used to some of these thoughts, because they're true ones. And the Christ of Jesus was being slaughtered by the physical concept called men, who have no life in them, and was slaying non-life. And the Christ was there to teach all men just that very thing, that what is happening here is the human illusion. Never think that you will die. What will die of you is your human illusion. And someday you will know what an illusion is, not by saying it, not by knowing it as something you think you see. You will feel the absence of the illusion. And you will realize all that could be buried of me was what I had thought I was. And I'm not that at all. I mean, you will have that experience of knowing you're not that. And if we could, well, we'll meditate on it a little later, but when we meditate on it, I want to first preface it with a few thoughts about it. The Jesus that was therefore looking at the members of the Sanhedrin and the people of the court, and then later at everybody who was saying crucify him, that was the Christ looking through the human illusion. That was Christ bringing it all to a head so that we could learn that when the human illusion seems real, the Christ who still walks out of that illusion is showing that death is impossible for the infinite Christ. And the fact that they said God raised him was that they didn't know what else to say. This is a very delicate point. You never die. I will be put under the grave just like everyone else, but I will never die. You will never die, because you and I are the one Christ. We are the same. And as we learn that, you'll find you can look at all of the forms that are saying crucify him, crucify him, crucify him, and you know that they have no existence. You can look at all of the nations that attack. You can look at the flying forces that are sent in to bomb, and you can know, yes, the bombs will land, they will bury the bodies. There's nobody in those bodies. The Christ is not in those bodies, and the Christ is the only one on earth. That's the lesson. The Christ is the only one on earth, and Christ is not in the appearance called form. To say, I am the Christ, then, you can see what you're saying. You're saying, I am not in the form. Because when the form looked at the people crucifying, the form is not what was there. And the people crucifying him, they had to come to their time of death within 5, 10, 15, or 20 years later, 30, 40, whatever that, and they were not in the form. He was teaching the nature of divine life. Divine life is the only life there is. I think you'll agree to that. And divine life is undying. That was the human illusion. And we are learning it 2,700 years after Isaiah, 2,000 years after Jesus. But his mission was fulfilled by his teaching. I have come upon the earth to reveal that there is no death, that Christ is the name of every being, whether he appears to you in form or not. That all is under the rule of God, all is immortal, all is infinite, all is eternal. You are Christ, the eternal being, the infinite being, the perfect being. You are as perfect as your Father in heaven. I want to get this across because once we know the truth, every time it comes to your attention, you'll remind yourself that you've got to know it better. And finally, you get to know it so well that you will know that you are the eternal Christ, the child of God, as specified by God. That there's nobody has the possibility of killing you, because whoever looks out can only see an image. And your body is that image. When you look out, do not believe that image is you. You are the Christ behind that image. And get to work on that. Get to know it. Get to feel the rightness of it. Because someday you will say, thank heaven I learned that I am the Christ behind this image. This image is going to go, right? We know it. And every image does go. And I will not be in it. And you will not be in it, whether you know it or not. You will not be in it. There'll be somebody in it, some sensitive person, and they'll mourn. You may be standing aside and looking at it, but you're not going to be in that image, and you're not in it now. And that's what our recognition has got to be. This is the kind of a class that goes many steps beyond the usual class. We're facing that which we have to learn. We can't do without it. Otherwise, they'll bury us, and we won't know that we're not buried. But knowing it, we will know. And there'll be some who won't even be buried. The degree of our capacity to know the truth will determine what does happen. And if you get the ability to stand back and to see not your eyes and its vision of the world, but to stand back and get a greater vision of the world, a soul vision which doesn't look at the things that people look at, a soul vision which feels the presence. If you get to spiritual consciousness and find that the consciousness of the presence of God is what you are feeling all around, you will be one selected for the next step. And that's a step that we're all going to take. There are no exceptions. Once we have lifted ourselves to that level of consciousness which can see that I've been looking at an illusion, they're not going to bury my relative. They're going to bury my concept of him, his concept of himself. But he will still be there, and I am going to know it. I am going to know that every person on the face of the earth is not what he appears to be. Judge not after appearances. And that's the appearance that I will not judge after. Somewhere I will find the ability to look at individuals who are flesh in my eyes and to see them with my soul and know they are divine being made of the pure Spirit of God, indivisible. Each is indivisible from the other. That's God's wish, and it's our wish. One indivisible self.